We're ready to go? Okay. Well, seniors, this Mr. Sock and Mr. Springer and I are gonna put together one last little video here. And I thought I'd give you a little going away present because we just have this week left. And I thought I'd include a little oceanography, marine biology type setup for you guys. And so what I've set up with, to start out with, I think we want to discuss the structures. And I think I did a little bit on that here, a couple of months ago maybe. But starting across, I've got an ocean floor diagram. And going here from the left side, then we've got the continent, the main body of land that's going to be coming up to the ocean. And this is going to vary, when you're talking about areas like Australia, it's more of a big island set up there, and then you've got North America, South America, on down the line. Okay, where things start to slope off, then you've got your coastal area, and then a lot of this area right in here, so you've got the shoreline where the ocean is meeting the coast, and sometimes called the coastline also. The shore up from that, typically called the beach. And then once you get out into the water, and you've got the level here, so this is the ocean level or sea level, that's zero elevation. Now that's not always going to meet the coastline at the same place because you've got tides. You guys talked about that back in Earth Science, a number of years ago already for you guys. But this can fluctuate quite a bit right in here. Going from, if you go to the Bay of Fundy in northeast Canada, you're going to end up with an area there where it might fluctuate up to 40 feet every day, up and down. And in some areas, you have 2 tides a day going up and down. Okay, so variation with this. The land is going to be sloping down into the water, which would be typical. That's called the continental shelf. This is probably the most highly prized area when you're talking about the ocean for fishermen. And a lot of the countries guard those pretty carefully. I think there's typically a 200-mile boundary out into the ocean there where you've got shipping. And then you get into the international seas, and I think they can grant rights, yada yada, on who can fish in those certain areas. So continental shelf, you've also got a variety of plant life that's growing in here. And this is where you're going to find those large kelp forests. So when we get into the marine biology part of it there, you've got these plants that are extending down to the bottom here, and they can be huge. And we talked about some of that when we went over the plant unit. But an example of one type, and this is kelp, this is a section of it, and it looks like a big ribbon. And the way that stays down on the bottom, these things don't have typical plant roots, but they have what they call a holdfast. Down toward the bottom, it's hooked into the solid ocean bottom. Like I said, these can be over 100 feet long. They're your brown algae types. And then also in those areas, we've got red algae types, and I forgot that I had these when we went over the algae sections. But this is what they call Irish moss, or Chondrus crispus. And that's high in agar, the material that you guys used on your bacteria labs. Stuff that's found in that makes ice cream smooth, using cosmetics. But people can go along the coastal areas and collect this, and it'll harden up into the material. And a lot of times it might be a bright red, since it is a red algae, or they may even be a greenish color. And then another common type of marine algae, Corallina. Got the little segments there. And this is really hard. It almost doesn't seem like it should be a plant. It's almost got like a little ceramic type coating with the cell walls that are on the outside there. So plants can secrete some pretty hard materials also. But anyway, those are 3 types of the algae that are found in those ocean areas. And then that continental shelf is going to gradually start to drop down into the ocean. And that's what you call it, a continental slope. And then when you get a steep drop, you've got the continental rise. Once you hit the main ocean area then, You've got the abyssal plains. If you notice across here, you've got kind of a flat area, and those are going to fluctuate in different areas of the ocean also. And then common in a lot of places, you have trenches. The Mariana Trench is one real common one, but those things can extend down several miles. And you've got a total different type of life that's going to be living here or even up in here and then down in these areas right here. Really hard to explore. They've got to use semi-submersibles to go down there, and even in a lot of cases they're unmanned to go down to those great depths. So the bottom part there, your ocean floor, basically the crust of the earth. This is an extension from the continental area here, except for it's underwater. You've got abyssal hills. A lot of times these may have been volcanic formations that have just rounded off and eroded over the years. You've got erosion down in the oceans just like you do on land. And in fact, if you see videos of some of this area right here, you literally see sand waterfalls that are occurring in the ocean. I mean, it just looks like they're flowing. I think one of the Indiana Jones movies had some of that going on in a desert area. And if you go to the Henry Doorly Zoo, every now and then they've got a display there. They've got the flowing sands. Well, it looks the same underwater, except for you're in a fluid environment, but it's sand that's just flowing at a constant rate. So like I said, erosion is taking place all the time. And then you've got areas in the middle of the Atlantic is a real common one, the mid-oceanic ridge there, or they call it the mid-Atlantic ridge. And you've got a lot of activity there. You've got what they call seafloor spreading going on, where these things are constantly being pushed out. And they can check ages of material in those because there's a geomagnetic record that's kind of stored in the rocks. And you're talking about that. Like I said, it pushes out, the layer pushes out further, and so that mid-oceanic ridge is constantly growing. And then down the middle, you've got what they call a rift valley. And you've got different life forms that are going to be living in those places too. And I guess, I keep bringing that up. You've got three basic types of life forms in the ocean. You've got zoo and phytoplankton, the real small, microscopic in a lot of cases types of things. Little animal-like organisms, little tiny plant-like organisms with the diatoms that we talked about when we hit the plant unit. And then you've got the free swimmers that are out in this area here, what they call nekton. That's going to be your seals, your whales, the fish, the jellyfish, those types of things there that are constantly on the move out in the ocean. And then you've got the ones that live on the bottoms, whether it's clear down here in the trench, on the abyssal plains, on the abyssal hills, any of these structures here, you've got life forms that are there. And those are called benthos, or the bottom dwellers. Common types there would be coral, the clams, oysters, lobsters that are living down there. Even though they can swim, most of their life is spent crawling around. So there's a whole variety of those types of organisms. And we'll talk about those, and we'll have some scavenger hunts here this week dealing with those types of things. And I'll try to separate those out. But you've got the plankton groups, you've got the nekton, the free swimmers, and the benthos, which are down on the bottom. Moving along here, then I'm going to jump over to this one here. You typically end up with a lot of areas that have hot spots going on, and plumes of magma will work their way up and end up breaking through the surface, and you get volcanic islands forming when you're up on the top there, but actually underground volcanoes, which we call seamounts, and then the magma coming up here can actually build. You can easily see that if you go on, Google the Hawaiian Islands and the big island of Hawaii right now. You've got a lot of that activity that's going on, and a number of other places around the world also. But those volcanic islands are there, where you have a lot of succession. We talked about some of those things. Then you get to your primary succession because you've got virtually bare, sterile surface area here that things will eventually grow on. If they're in a tropical area, it'll happen a lot faster than if you have someplace like up around Iceland, where you've got another series of those things. But like I said, the Hawaiian Islands are formed. The way some of that develops is you have a plate type action that's sloping down into here, and then you've got this other one that's coming across here. And as this is plunging down, it tends to heat up with the inner earth, and then those plumes, just like when we talk about rising heat, will work their way up, bust through the surface, and then you get that action going on. And it's going to be on a smaller level down here and just keep working its way up. And like I said, the ones that are submerged are called seamounts. And then erosion takes place after a while, and you get some flat top ones. It'd be like the buttes in western Nebraska. If you go around Chadron, Scotts Bluff, you've got things like Jailhouse Rock, the Seven Sisters areas around Fort Robinson, and that we've got those flattened off areas. Typically, if they're small, they're buttes. If they're large, you can end up with plateaus developing in an area. But just another sign of erosion, and then like I said, eventually they'll work their way down to becoming abyssal hills. Now, I talked about the plate action that was going on here, and that's all going back to your earth science when you talk about plate tectonics. But this is subduction, when you've got things going like this, plate going here, this one sinking down, and then right here you've got some seafloor spreading that's taking place because this keeps building out. And then if we go back on the continent, a lot of these mountain areas that were formed there, the Himalayas are a really good example. The Rocky Mountains are another good example where you've got colliding plates. And one doesn't slide under, but these things crash together and they work their way up. And then that's why the Himalayas are still constantly growing. Some little bits of the Rockies, but when you hear about K2 and Mount Everest, you know, those mountains are gradually getting a little bit bigger. Will Mount Everest get up to 30,000 feet? Who knows? You know, it's something that may happen or may not happen. Other things with the ocean that I want to bring up with before we conclude this little presentation is that you've got different water layers in here. If you've ever been swimming out in some of the sand pits around here in the summertime, you may notice that the top part of the water is a little bit warmer in the summertime. And if you go down about 10, 15 feet, depending on the area you're at, it tends to start getting a little bit colder. Farther down you get, it starts to get really cold. A lot of areas of the ocean, this bottom areas especially, clear down these trenches there, it's very close to freezing. And you've got totally different life forms that way. When you get to Antarctica, with the salt in the water down line there, it's actually even a little bit below. And you've got life forms that are there. There are those glass fish that are down in those areas. They've got a special type of blood, and there's a lot that they don't understand about them, but they don't freeze. And they live very well in those types of areas. But each one of these boundary areas with the different temperature levels and different depths in the ocean is supporting a different type of life. You know, some prefer that warm water, some prefer that rather cooler area, and then some prefer the real frigid areas that are down below. Okay, and I think that's where we're going to stop with this little episode here. And you've got a general idea of the ocean, so when you're talking about some of those forms, we come up with the scavenger hunts here that talking about the benthos, the nekton, and the plankton types that are out there, then maybe you'll understand a little bit, you can kind of visualize with this right here, and you can always go back and take a look at this. And we may even have a few questions that deal with this part right here. So thank you. If we don't get another video set up here, then I would like to say congratulations to you seniors, and since you'll be done this Friday, and hopefully things go well. You're in college next fall, and hopefully we're not having to do your college classes online also. I mean, you're going to have some online classes, but hopefully the whole bunch isn't there. And I'm going to let Mr. Springer say goodbye to you here.
See you, Klaus. It's been an honor working with you. I had a really great experience my first year here, so look forward to working here next year.
Okay, and thank you and goodbye.